Yo everyone, I'm still not home yet. I'm on vacation, so my setup is clearly different. Apologies, but how could I pass up on the opportunity to drop some Champions League predictions and group stage previews? I would do more timely stuff, but I haven't really watched football at all, really, while I've been away, besides going to a match in England and then watching Benfica on TV while I was in Lisbon. So, let's do this. It'll be pretty conversational given that I don't have my regular setup, obviously. Shout out to my girlfriend's mom. Grab a beer for yourself though, sit back like I am so I can get into frame, and let's talk some Champions League. Group A, consisting of Atletico Madrid, Club Brugge, Borussia Dortmund, and AS Monaco. This group sort of reminds me of the group consisting of Porto, Monaco, RB Leipzig, and Besiktas from last season. You know, a group that was mega hard to call from the outset as it seemed so balanced. I think that while this group seems a little less balanced than the aforementioned one from last year, it's still a bit of a tough one to call given the form of some of the teams going into it. Atletico Madrid, of course, will be seen as the favorites by some as they pretty much double qualified for the competition thanks to their Europa League triumph last season, while also finishing ahead of their Madrid rivals in second place in the La Liga table last season. And hey, maybe they'll finish above them again with additions like Gelson Martins and Thomas Lemar on the wings and the retention of Antoine Griezmann. That is a terrifying attack. Not to mention Diego Costa, who has the benefit of starting this season with his team, whereas last season he was just chilling until January drinking beers in Brazil. Not to mention the hallmarks of the team being their defensive positions, with Godin undeniably one of the best center backs in the world and Jan Oblak one of the top keepers, maybe even top 3 keepers in the world. I don't know, you tell me, baby. Despite this, Atletico have had a strange start to the season with a win, a draw, and a loss apiece, losing, of course, to Celta de Vigo 2-0. A blip, no doubt, and not something to throw away all expectations over, but it certainly shows that they can be beaten. I just talked about Atletico for a long time there. And for a team like Borussia Dortmund, who went through some wholesale changes over the summer in both player personnel and coaching staff, the fact that they can be beaten could bode well for them in their pursuit of the top spot. Now, Dortmund will have Christian Pulisic coming into this competition as an established starter and a more fully realized, fleshed out talent than he was last season. While the biggest addition to their squad will of course be the fact that Marco Reus is healthy, as he has an incredible strike rate, well, when he's playing. The problem is he's extremely fragile, but if he stays healthy, then Dortmund will be in good shape. And I'm sorry that I look like I'm chilling hard here. It's just, as I said, I'm trying to crouch into frame because I don't have a tripod to set my camera up properly. Speaking of shape, the addition of Axel Witsel to their midfield is a massive boost, and perhaps one of the pieces that they have been seriously lacking in recent years, alongside, not to mention, Thomas Delaney. Their defense looks solid, and Favre, once again, with his system up and running, will have a talented team working behind him, just as he did at Borussia Mönchengladbach. I think that this group will be a battle between Atletico and Dortmund for the top spot. Shocking, I know, with Atletico just edging the German side to first place. Now, that bears the question who will get the haloed Europa League spot between Club Brugge, who are very comfortable champions of the first division in Belgium last season, scoring 19 more goals than the second-placed Anderlecht, and their fellow Group A combatants, AS Monaco. Two tough teams that I think will cause problems for both Atletico and Borussia, as this will be a tight Group A, but, like I said, Dortmund and Atletico will still make it out. Club Brugge, I think, will be a bit of a surprise for most of this season, as they will really be stubborn defensively, while also flexing those goal-scoring muscles that they have shown off in the championship last season. Monaco, of course, are no slouches either, as they finished in second place last season behind champions PSG and Ligue 1. One problem with Monaco, however, is that they consistently seem to just get picked apart season after season, the vulture circle around them, with their biggest loss this time around being Thomas Lemar, who will make an immediate return to the Principality with his new club Atletico. It's a tough call, but I think that Club Brugge will just slip past Monaco, meaning the standings will be Atletico, Dortmund, the Bruges boys, and then the Bougie boys, Monaco. Bad and Bruges. Alright, Group B, as the fun continues and we hit perhaps our first of 3 potential groups of death. The next one is coming up in a sec. But Group B boasts the champions of Spain, FC Barcelona, the eternally difficult to read Tottenham Hotspur, another team that's hard to get a read on but has made massive changes over the summer, Inter Milan, and of course the champions of Holland, PSV Eindhoven. You really get the feeling that whoever finishes third in this group could go on to win the Europa League, but anyway, PSV, no slouches in the goals department, have had an incredible start to their season with 4 wins from 4 and 14 goals scored. As well, in the preseason, they really tested themselves against European opposition, getting wins against Turkish champions Galatasaray, and of course, Valencia, and the forever looked over in Europe, Olympiacos. I feel bad for PSV as getting drawn into a group like this is a tall order, even for teams with a more established European pedigree. That said, they have won both the UEFA Cup and the European Cup, so respect to PSV. Inter Milan are playing in the competition for the first time since the 2011-2012 season, and as I said, they have really revamped their squad in comparison to last season. Their spine looks good, with the additions of Radia Nainggolan and Steven De Vrij, not to mention Keita Balde, Kwadwo Asamoah, Lautaro Martinez, etc, etc. They also have Ivan Perisic coming off of a great World Cup performance for Croatia, and while Mauro Icardi can be one of the most devastating strikers on his day, he does tend to go missing at times, but yeah. Spalletti doesn't have a great European record. He took Roma to the quarterfinals one year, and he'll be hoping to improve upon that. They've had a slow start in the Serie A, but with all the changes, it's to be expected. No? Now, Tottenham, who came ever so close to getting past Juventus in the Champions League round of 16 last season, they made absolutely no changes to their squad over the summer, choosing instead to build upon what they already have. And to be honest with you, I'm not the biggest fan of that tactic, but I don't know. Given the players that they do have, the ascendancy of Harry Kane, who is really looking like a great leader, not only for his national team, but for Spurs as well, the strong midfield spine they have of Dembele, Eriksen, Dele, not to mention their Belgian defense, the sometimes gave-saving Lloris, who admittedly can also cost you a game with some of his clangers. Yeah, Spurs boast a pretty decent crop of players, not to mention a manager who, while he doesn't have a single piece of silverware to his name, is still considered one of the best in the world as far as nurturing talent goes. Now, of course, FC Barcelona, after almost having an invincible season, just went ahead and improved their squad further with the additions of Arthur for some midfield creativity, who has been likened to Xavi by his teammates, as well as the veteran Arturo Vidal for some defensive solidity / box-to-box action, Clément Langlais, Malcolm, and I think that's it. All of these names add to the fact that Ousmane Dembele is playing with confidence now. Luis Suarez and Messi are one of the best partnerships in the world. And with the defense looking decent, Barcelona should be able to top this group and do a little better in Europe than they did last season. You'll remember what happened there, right? That night in Rome. With that said, I think that Tottenham will finish behind them in second, making it to the knockout stages once again, while Inter will finish in third, going on to be one of the top contenders for the Europa League, and PSV, unfortunately, will finish bottom. My bitch is bad and Brugge. Now, if you thought the last group was a tight one, then Group C comes along to make things even harder for you. Another group of death. This one boasts the French champions PSG, Napoli, who pushed Juve all the way in Italy last season, the Champions League finalists Liverpool, who are off to a great start domestically, and Red Star Belgrade. PSG has gone a perfect 4 for 4 thus far in France, with their attack just looking ridiculous. Nothing new there. Especially with Edinson Cavani returning to their lineup and scoring twice in 2 appearances. Kylian Mbappe really announced himself as one of the best attackers in the world during this World Cup, and if you've seen some of his performances thus far, with 4 goals from 3 appearances and 2 assists along the way, then you'll know that he's the real deal. Not to mention Neymar, who has so far this season boasts the same numbers as Mbappe, but minus 1 assist. Buffon has made their defense something to be reckoned with, while their midfield 3 of Diarra, Rabiot, and Bernede has a great mix of youthful exuberance and, well, experience in general. I reckon they'll take the top spot. The 2 teams that will really be pushing them for the top spot and battling it out for second will be Napoli and Liverpool, as Red Star will finish bottom. Sorry, there's construction outside. What a surprise, Montreal. Respect to Red Star, though, as they qualified via the playoff route thanks to an incredible comeback away to FC Salzburg. After the first leg ended 0-0 in Serbia, Red Star found themselves 2-0 down in the second half in Austria. Miraculously, they scored 2 goals in 2 minutes in the 65th and 66th to put them through on away goals. Just barely, though, as Salzburg absolutely peppered them with 30 shots in that match. I think their luck will run out a bit, but they'll at least provide us with 1 or 2 fun moments in this group. So as far as Napoli and Liverpool go, who will grab second and who will drop to the Europa League? Well, Liverpool are basically a bigger, better team than they were last season, with key additions of Naby Keita and Fabinho to their midfield, as well as Alisson Becker in goal. Alisson has had a bit of a tendency for the mad touch now and then, fancying himself as an outfield player, but his shot-stopping ability is still incredible. At the opposite end, Sadio Mane and Firmino and Mohamed Salah are showing no signs of slowing down after their incredible performances last year. And on top of this, they're seemingly capable of grabbing wins in matches that they don't play particularly well in, which they've had to do a couple of times this season so far. Napoli, on the other hand, have a new manager in Carlo Ancelotti, but a manager that knows the Champions League inside out. Yes, he was humbled at the beginning of last season with Bayern Munich, leading to his sacking, but he's still a manager that has won the Champions League twice. While Napoli will have to get used to his style of play coming out of the sorry ball years. In fact, most recently, they were picked apart by Sampdoria, losing 3-0. Yikes. Arek Milik has never really convinced me as the leading man for Napoli, proving incapable of scoring more than 5 goals in a season for Napoli in his first 2 bouts with the club, but maybe he can improve, and if not, Dries Mertens is never a slouch. I like having a desk here. I feel like a real news anchor. However, I think that Liverpool is a team that is designed for the Champions League football, especially for the knockout stages. But last season they showed how capable they are of bossing the group stage as well. While I don't think they will boss this one, they will finish ahead of Napoli in second place. Will Napoli drop into the Europa League for the 2nd season running? All right. Now to Group D, another very balanced group with Lokomotiv Moskva, the Russian champs, FC Porto, the Portuguese champs, Schalke 04, the German runners-up, and of course, the Turkish champs, Galatasaray. In fact, I think this Champions League group boasts the most champions, if my math serves me correctly. This one looks quite balanced. Once again, people, the magic word of the episode is balanced, apparently. As though Porto did well in the group stage last season, they got absolutely smashed by Liverpool in the round of 16. There's no shame in that, given how Liverpool smashed a few teams along the way to the finals, but Porto ended Benfica's dominance domestically, though they haven't looked as strong at times early doors this season, just squeaking past Belenenses thanks to a stoppage time penalty and losing to Guimarães at home. Schalke impressed last season, while they impressed most, with Tedesco guiding them to a second-place finish. However, some, Dave mainly, have expressed some concern over their boring tactics getting found out this season, and things getting a lot harder for their young manager. To be honest with you, looking back on last season, Schalke were perhaps a bit fortunate with the fact that the rest of the chasing pack behind Bayern Munich all had a pretty poor season. RB Leipzig were shocking at times, Borussia Dortmund as well, and Hoffenheim took a long time to settle into their season, whom Schalke finished 8 points ahead of. But still, they finished in second, so fair enough to them. Lokomotiv Moskva had a bit of a run in the Europa League last season, ultimately meeting their elimination fate in the round of 16 with an 8-1 aggregate smash-up at the hands of Atletico Madrid. They managed to only lose 3-0 in Madrid, but completely shit it at home, losing 5-1, which is terrible. Despite that, though, Lokomotiv did go on to win the Russian Premier League last season, but finishing unconvincingly, allowing CSKA to cut their lead down to 2 points. And this season, they're continuing with that relatively poor form from last year, as they have 2 wins, 2 draws, and 2 losses thus far. The squad doesn't mega impress me, given that one of their top performers is a 32-year-old Vedran Korluka, and that bum Manuel Fernandes. I mean, they do have the man, the myth, the meme, Eder as a striking option, but can he replicate his form from 2016? We shall see. 4 goals in 18 appearances last season? Damn. What a stud. And finally, rounding out the group is the Turkish champions Galatasaray. Last season, they didn't even have any European football as they lost to Swedish side Östersunds in the second qualifying round for the Europa League. Pretty damn weak. But hey, it allowed them to have a more domestic focus. This is the first time they've been in the Champions League since the 2015-16 season, where they went out in the group stage, thanks in large part to their inability to beat Kazakhstani club Astana on both occasions that they met. But this time around, Gala are looking strong once again, with Henry Onyekuru and Emre Akaba looking great for them in the attack, while Maicon is ushering in the back line effectively, and with Muslera in goal, there's always going to be a tough time for the opposition to put one past them. That barely made sense, but you get what I'm saying. I think that for this group, as I said, it's going to be a tight one, but the most likely outcome that I see is, well, I'm loath to admit it, Porto finishing top in this one with Galatasaray right behind them, Schalke dropping into the Europa League in third, and LOKOMOTIV on a train to elimination. See what I did there? Absolutely trash joke, and I apologize for it. Man, I'm just realizing now that I spoke way too long about Group A, so I'll try to speed this up now. My bad. That's what you get when you're just sitting here chatting. Alright, so Group E, the groupies. And of course, the closest group to my heart, we've got Bayern Munich, Ajax, AEK Athens, and Benfica. AEK Athens are in the Champions League for the first time in 12 years after just edging Hungarian side Vidi 3-2 on aggregate in the Champions League qualifiers. They had to take the playoff route despite winning the Greek Super League title last season, which was their first triumph since the 1993-94 season, with this latest title ending the insane run of 7 straight titles for Olympiacos. Well, thank God. The domination by Olympiacos in that league is insane, by the way. Just as a side note, they have won 44 titles, while the next closest team, Panathinaikos, has won just 20. Less than 50%, man. Anyway, despite AEK just slipping through, they shouldn't be taken lightly, as these teams that people typically write off have typically come back to bite some big boy butts. You know what I'm saying? They have a decent squad, with a standout player undoubtedly being Petros Mantolos in the midfield. This really is the group of playoff qualification teams, which on paper makes things sound easy for Bayern Munich, but we'll see. Anyway, another team to make it into the competition via the playoffs, Benfica, qualified after a 5-2 trouncing of fellow Greek side PAOK. Before that, they defeated Fenerbahce in the third qualifying round, winning 2-1 on aggregate, a mega close call that had me on the verge of a heart attack, so it was nice to see them coasting past PAOK. They're looking strong in the league, and some underperformers from last season, like Pizzi and Salvio, are already looking great thus far, and the addition of Jetson in their midfield adds another dimension. I'm still not completely convinced by the defense, though Odysseus is looking great in goal, and Facundo Ferreira is having a slow start up top. That said, Seferovic has looked decent, which is great, because I had high hopes for him last year and he fell completely short. I like what I'm seeing so far from Benfica. Hey, I don't have to crouch it out anymore. How do you like that, huh? I like that. Ajax, the final team to make it into this competition via the playoffs, at least in this group, of course, as they made it past Dynamo Kiev. After winning 3-1 at home, they went away to the Ukraine and grabbed a 0-0 draw. All this despite absolutely dominating Dynamo Kiev. Ajax had missed out on Europe's top competition for the last 4 seasons, so it's exciting to see them back. The last time they were in it, they caused some problems, but only managed to finish in 3rd place before going on to drop out of the Europa League in the round of 16. They finished runners-up in the Eredivisie last season, a big disappointment for them, as that is now made for 4 seasons in a row that they have been the metaphorical bridesmaids of the league, and never the bride. Ajax just wants to be the bride, man. You gotta like what you see from them as far as personnel goes, with Ziyech or Ziyech looking to be the next big thing as far as the young talent goes. Dolberg back to fight for the starting spot with Huntelaar. Dusan Tadic has looked incredible for them. Matthijs de Ligt has been playing way beyond his years. Ajax has a good squad. You know who else has a good squad? Bayern Munich. And despite not really doing much for me in the transfer market, just bringing in Leon Goretzka on a free, Alphonso Davies joining in January, etc., they still undoubtedly have the strongest squad on paper in this group. They also felt it was fine to let go of Sebastian Rudy, Arturo Vidal, and Juan Bernat, on top of Douglas Costa's move to Juve becoming permanent. The most important bit of business was holding on to Robert Wantaway Lewandowski, but despite him wanting to bounce, he's still banging them in. Last season, they felt robbed again in the semifinals of the Champions League, another bridesmaid. And so far this season, which has just started, they're 2 for 2 in the Bundesliga. Manuel Neuer is back, so there likely won't be any more Ulrich-isms this go around. Mind you, Neuer isn't what he used to be, so we'll see what happens there. Remember what happened against Korea when he was trying to be a bad boy outside of the box? Regardless, I can only see Bayern winning this group, perhaps not as comfortably as we would have thought in previous seasons, but they should still top it. I think that second will come down to Ajax and Benfica, and I am nervous about betting on Benfica getting it done this go-around, given how dreadful they were last season. But that being said, I don't think they will be as dreadful as last season, and they will at least get into second, while Ajax drops into the Europa League. Am I biased? Yeah. Group F, Manchester City, Shakhtar, Lyon, and Hoffenheim. Now, Hoffenheim finished in 3rd place last season, an improvement for them, as last season they also missed out on the Champions League thanks to Liverpool beating them in the playoffs. A big part of their success last season was thanks to the on-loan Serge Gnabry, who has returned to his parent club, Bayern Munich. Posing the question, how will Hoffenheim do without the boy? Well, they brought in yet another Arsenal winger, Reiss Nelson, Ishak Belfodil as a striker, Vincenzo Grifo on the left, Leonardo Bittencourt, who sort of operates as a wingback, etc. The main thing with Hoffenheim is the man behind all of this madness, Julian Nagelsmann, who's managing in Europe for the first time in his career, and he doesn't have an easy start to it in this group filled with English champions, Ukrainian champions, and, Lyon. Speaking of which, let's talk about them. While they have had a bit of a slower start to their Ligue 1 campaign with 2 wins and 2 losses, they do have a talented squad. Memphis Depay, still only 24. Nabil Fekir and Traore make for an intimidating attack. That is when Fekir's knee is usable. Their defense is just okay by my books, with Anthony Lopes decent in goal. Luka Toussaint is a great number 6, making up a youthful midfield alongside Ndembele. But with the departure of Mariano back to Real Madrid, you've got to wonder where most of the goals will come from. Depay has operated as a striker for them so far and has been okay. If 1 goal in 4 matches is okay, there's potential in this team to be strong defensively, as the matches that they have lost have only been 1-0 matches, but again, it's that lack of scoring. Who's going to score for them? Shakhtar will be a bit annoyed that they are meeting Manchester City once again in the Champions League group stage after they faced off against them in the group stage last season, managing to come out ahead of Napoli, grabbing 2nd place behind the English champions. Well, the soon-to-be English champions at that point. They qualified for the competition as champions of the Ukraine, but that doesn't mean that they will have as strong of a team as last season, as they lost 3 absolutely crucial players this summer. Bernard left to Everton, Fred was sold to Manchester United, and Facundo Ferreira was sold to Benfica. Unfortunately for Benfica, I'm joking. Ferreira, I'm sure you'll be fine. I'm sure. But anyways, those 3 players combined scored 44 goals for Shakhtar last season, so to say that they're in deep from the off would be a bit of an understatement. And finally, City, who are looking strong already this season despite the massive loss in midfield of Mr. KDB. In fact, it's looking as if he'll be out for the entirety of the UCL group stage, so Godspeed to him in his recovery. But anyways, as I said, they have looked strong, with their only stumble this season being a 1-1 draw with Wolves in the Prem. Their biggest addition this summer was, of course, Riyad Mahrez from Leicester, finally ending that long-lasting courtship that nobody cared to watch. I have a newfound respect for Pep Guardiola after watching the Manchester City propaganda series, All or Nothing. I'm joking, it's not propaganda, but it is a decent watch if you're curious about the inner workings of not Manchester City as a club, but just any club. But if we had to choose a weakness for City, you would think that it would be in the centre-back position, with Kompany seemingly always a step away from a long-term injury. John Stones at times erratic, though he has improved majorly, and Otamendi, well, he's almost always solid for them. He has a mistake once in a while, but he's not bad. The addition of Benjamin Mendy has also been an absolute revelation and adds yet another dimension to their attack from the back. That's the name of the next Star Wars prequel movie, Attack from the Back. Regardless, I think that City will finish in first pretty easily, while Shakhtar will finish in dead last, with Hoffenheim and Lyon battling it out for second. Who will get second in the battle of the 2 teams that will struggle to score? I think that Nagelsmann will get crucial results against Lyon, guiding Hoffenheim to their first ever Champions League round of 16. Lyon, well, of course they're going to drop into the Europa League. Almost there, guys. We are in the final 2 groups. First up is Group G, with Real Madrid, AS Roma, CSKA Moskva, and Viktoria Plzen. CSKA, as alluded to earlier, finished in 2nd in Russia last season for the 3rd time in 4 seasons. Guys, you know what we called that? That's right, bridesmaids. They lost their Donny Alexander Golovin to AS Monaco, Vitinho pieced out to Flamengo, but they brought in Arnor Sigurdsson and Ivan Obliakov. They still have Akinfeev in goal, Russian star Mario Fernandes, Fedor Shalov has already banged 5 goals, and they have, well, a knack for drawing matches, as they have 3 so far after 6 matches in Russia. Viktoria Plzen had an okay run in the Europa League last season, pushing Sporting Lisbon all the way, and winning the Czech First League title, their 3rd in the last 4 seasons. So, the opposite of those absolute maids, CSKA Moskva. Now, I know very little about Czech football, but PLZEN is always up there. Occasionally they make some noise in Europe, but like last season they did, but you won't expect them to get out of this group. Hell, I think they will be in last place come November. One spot behind CSKA, who will finish in third. Spoiler alert. That means that the two teams moving on from this group will of course be AS Roma and Real Madrid. But in which order? Well, Roma for starters made some major moves in the transfer market, while also having a major embarrassment when it comes to the failed move for Brazilian winger Malcolm, who was even announced as a signing by the official club Twitter. Roma English is one of the best club Twitters on the internet, by the way. They are a must follow. Anyways, they provided one of the most memorable moments in it, or at least matches, in the Champions League last season with their comeback against Barcelona, and with the additions of, Justin Kluivert and Zonzi, Pastore, etc. They'll be hoping for more of the same. With Edin Dzeko up there, then it's definitely possible. His strike rate in the Champions League last season was crazy. 8 goals and 12 appearances ain't nothing to sneeze at, man. I mean, it's no Cristiano Ronaldo, but comparing him to Ronaldo is like silly in the Champions League. Now, Real Madrid had a big change for them, as after 9 seasons, Cristiano Ronaldo has bounced to Juventus. And Zidane left, of course, as well. To fill that void, or at least to try to fill that void, Vinicius Jr. has arrived finally. Mariano Diaz arrives after one successful season at Lyon, in which he scored 18 league goals. While he never cut it at Real Madrid before, his strike rate for the B team is crazy. No, you're right, it doesn't mean anything. But regardless, Benzema has looked good for Lopetegui. Sergio Ramos has looked good as the new king of penalties for Madrid. Thibaut Courtois has taken the #1 spot in goal from Keylor Navas, etc. They've only played weak teams so far in La Liga, so it's hard to get a read on them. But with that said, I think that it will be AS Roma finishing in first in this group, with Real Madrid just 1 point behind them in second place. Tight stuff, no? Okay guys, I know that this has gone on longer than the entirety of the Lord of the Rings series. Actually, at least that's enjoyable. This is more like the Hobbit trilogy, which was mega trash, but we can argue about that together in another video. We just have one last group left, and it is of course our final group and our final group of death. Manchester United, Juventus, Valencia, and Young Boys. Well, to start, the boys of Young Boys of Bern managed to qualify for this competition via the playoff route by defeating Dinamo Zagreb 3-2 on aggregate. And if you hadn't clued in simply via the scoreline, it wasn't easy, man. But 2 goals in 2 minutes from Guillaume Jorau was enough to get the boys into the Champions League for the first time in 32 years. That's huge for them. So big up the boys. But I don't think it will go well for them. 4th place finish seems right via my extensive calculations and research. Now, this is where we get into the nitty-gritty. Juve have been in the Champions League final twice in the last 4 seasons, so you know that they aren't too far away from a title. In fact, if it hadn't been for a contentious penalty given in stoppage time against Real Madrid, who knows? Perhaps they could have gone on to big things last season. But anyway, they have no problems domestically, so they only went on to bring in the best Champions League performer of all time, Cristiano Ronaldo, the record goal scorer by a long shot. With the return of Bonucci in defense, the addition of Emre Can, João Cancelo adding to their fullback options, etc., they are clearly strapping up for a deep run. Valencia too have strapped up this season, adding prolific goal scorer and absolute meme man, Michy Batshuayi to their ranks, who, if he can link up well with Rodrigo and Zaza, could have quite the season in Spain. I really like Rodrigo, and he just scored for Spain recently as well, as his stock continues to rise after taking a bit of a hit a few seasons ago. They also added Cheryshev, who had an incredible World Cup, and again continues to perform for his country. Gonzalo Guedes was brought in permanently this time, Kevin Gamero, Jason Murillo on a permie, Diakabi, etc, etc, etc. They had a damn good transfer market, my friend, and I expect them to cause some big-time problems for both Juventus and Manchester United. As for the latter, they are having a bit of a strange start to their season, as the rumors of their sometimes captain, Paul Pogba, wanting to leave for Spain never seem to go away, mainly due to the fact that Pogba does the absolute minimum to make them go away, simply taking on the Captain Obvious stance of, hey dog, listen, I've got a United contract for now. It does run out at some point, so it's just for now. And by the way, I mean, you never know what will happen in the future, you know? Barcelona sounds nice. I'm with United, but it sounds nice. You never know what will happen. So United clearly have problems in the center back position as well, despite having a wealth of options, all of which seem to be completely erratic. I have a suspicion that their center back pairings like to share a spliff pre-match because the errors they make at times are comical, to say the least, let alone Dr. Jones's penchant for scoring own goals. David De Gea has looked a bit of a shadow of himself, though apparently he looked good against England. I missed that match, I will say. The right back position seems like it may be a problem, and just when Luke Shaw was looking incredible for them, he gets smashed by Dani Carvajal. Scoring also seems to be a labor, with Lukaku still doing Lukaku things like bottling it against big opposition, so it will be interesting to see how Mourinho does with this team in the Champions League, and just in general, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you again, if I might, I had a dream that United dropped down into the Europa League and Nuno Gomes won them the competition. Yeah, dude, don't ask. But the more I think about it, the more that this scenario seems likely. Nuno Gomes to return from retirement, and I'm joking, but the more I think about it, the more that I can see Valencia pipping United to second, with Juve finishing in first, United dropping into the Europa League, and young boys just sort of there for the ride to help others improve their goal difference tally. That's right, United out at the group stage. Fire away in the comments section, let's hear ya. In fact, just as a general comment for you guys, please do fire away in the comment section because I'd love to get your thoughts on the Champions League this season. How do you see it going? How will your team do? Will Benfica do one better than last year and get at least a single point? I hope to God they do. Alright guys, I appreciate you watching this video. I'll be back home for my travels on the 17th, so regular uploads will follow. If you just found out about us and enjoyed this video, then be sure to hit that subscribe button for me. Drop a like. If you're confused by the UEFA Nations League, I've got a video on that. And I will see you later. Peace!